Real deal. Now, Arben, it seems like every other day another company comes out with another billion-dollar valuation in the private markets. Mark Cuban maybe sent up the first yellow red flag or flare, if you will. How worried should people be? Is this a gigantic bubble somehow?
I don't think so. I think we should learn about what happened in 2000, and the ecosystem was not ready at that time to actually adopt technology. Now you have 4 to 5 screens in every household. You got TVs, you got desktops, tablets, you got iPhones and smartphones. You have now watches, and that means there's a massive appetite in the ecosystem to actually hunger for technology.
Yeah, I get your point, because I remember when we first put in fiber optics in our office, and we were doing some things on the web. Average people couldn't get it on their TV or on their computers. Foreigners had it or whatever, and it was kind of spotty. We were definitely years early. What about some of these secrets? How do these companies, you and I were talking about this growth hacking, explain to the audience how all of a sudden these companies instantly get so many subscribers or have access to so many people?
Well, they identify where their clients are, and instead of actually using traditional methods like marketing, they actually identify the river that's constantly flowing. Now, so what that means is that, for example, Airbnb, the way they actually were able to get the volume of listings, they actually stole it from Craigslist, or copied it from Craigslist and VRBO, and then all of a sudden they had a massive, listing volume. They presented that data much better, and guess what?
Is this the secret, though? I mean, is this like the open secret in Silicon Valley? You get enough money, you go and you borrow someone's list, and you're up and running?
The idea is adoption, for you to actually identify growth patterns. And if you don't have a growth hacker in your team right now in Silicon Valley, you can't even raise money.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. Now, I'll ask the market guys, and I'll start with you, Hillary. Now, for me, there's something unseemly about the idea that Uber, for instance, and we're going to talk more in detail about it, but just any company could, let's say, be worth $500 million, then $1 billion, then $3 billion, then $10 billion. And then by the time they go public and they give us a shot at it, or the viewers, hey, it could be yours for $90 billion. It didn't always work that way. There was a time when people got involved a lot earlier and were able to enjoy the ramp up.
Right, but the world has changed so much, as we're talking about in Silicon Valley, with all of these early rounds of investors that keep raising the valuation. So you have an Uber, which was $45 billion, now we're at $60 billion. And for us to make money, the only way as an individual investor anyone will make money is if Uber only comes public with maybe 3% of the value, maybe $1.8 billion. So the float has to be
I don't
small.
understand, though. Even if the float is small, the market cap, though, would be the same, though. In other words,
but it's
if it went public at $90 billion, even if they only sold 100 shares, it would still be, someone's going to be paying up for this thing.
Right, because you always have some people who are all going to invest in IPOs. All over the world, you have that interest. But when it comes to Uber, it's very interesting. There were plenty of other Ubers out there. There have been so many companies like Uber, but Uber did exactly what Albert is saying, which is take the clients and the customers and figure out ways to convert everyone over to themselves and get scale.
Arben talked about more screens at home, the pods, the watches now, the iPhones and whatnot. The fact is, the private market has matured a lot as well. So you're making a very good point that there's so many rounds of financing, and the valuation is shooting up before it goes public and the retail investors get a shot. But the fact is, I also say a lot of mistakes, and a lot of companies that probably never should have gone public in the original crash. They went public because they put a .com in their name. They're not going to be able to go public because they're not going to get the private funding.
So you're saying
there's a yin and a yang here.
They're better vetted.
They're far better vetted, but you're right that a lot of the value potentially has been taken off the table. But look at Facebook. People who could have gotten who bought it in the open market when it went public actually would have done pretty well. So it doesn't take out all the value, but it does take out a lot of it, I guess, in the private market. Chris
wrote an article on Shopify, right?
Yep.
Just last week. You seem pretty bullish on it. Now, of course, Etsy, which went public a month ago, has been an unmitigated disaster for anyone who bought it that day at the high.
That's right.
What's the difference? Why does one work and one doesn't?
Well, to me, Etsy is a portal where people can sell things, right? So you can only buy what they have at the moment. Shopify, on the other hand, it's an enabling platform that lets small, medium-sized businesses put their wares on the web. So one's enabling, one's just a portal. Kind of like, and I compare Etsy to Groupon, where with Groupon, it really depends on what they have at that moment.
Right.
And
so there are limitations. By the way, limitations they put on themselves, I think, which are a little bit onerous, but that's the internal problem. All right, so here's the thing, Matt. You've got all these private sector companies. If something went wrong, if one of these companies couldn't raise money, if somehow there was a panic on the private market, I don't know how it would play out, but how would it affect the public market?
I don't think it will be much effect. It may be very short one-off, maybe affect another company that's related to them, a very niche sector. But if you look at the valuations of just the publicly traded companies, the NASDAQ forward PE, the next 12 months looking out, is less than 20. We're not at bubble valuations. It's very tough to value the private companies, so they may be at bubble valuations, as Mark Cuban said, and a lot of other people agree with him. But when it comes to the public ones, when you're in a public market, it's very liquid. We determine, the public, the hedge funds determine the valuation of that company. So I'm not as concerned when private ones are not very liquid.
Right.
You're going to have astronomical valuations.
I tell you, it's just a little problematic when every day there's a new billion-dollar company out there. All right, guys, we do have a couple of news alerts for you. First, the IRS got taxed. That's right, the tax agency announcing just moments ago that thieves have used an online service it provided to gain access information from over 100,000 taxpayers. I'm not sure if you'll get a refund, but the IRS says they will be notifying those affected by the breach. Second, strike one for President Obama on immigration. That's right. A federal appeals court just struck down his executive order that would have provided amnesty for nearly 5 million illegal immigrants. Now, the order, if you remember, has been under temporary hold since February after 26 states filed a lawsuit saying that it was unconstitutional. New York City Uber drivers converting to yellow cabs. Maybe it's going to work. The ultimate unicorn is more like a bull in a china shop, but can it be stopped? And here's a big question. Should it be stopped? We'll be right back.
absolutely.
All righty, guys, got to blow the whistle. Let's open up a page from Payne's investment playbook. Now, there hasn't been anything this disruptive since maybe the atomic bomb in business, maybe the horseless carriage. I mean, we're talking today, there were protests in Mexico City. Hundreds of black cars also showed up to protest Uber in London, where it used to take 2 years to become an official taxi driver. Remember, that was like everyone wanted to be a London taxi driver. In New York, the Taxi and Limousine Commission, they've decided that maybe going on the offense will be the best defense after Uber cars actually passed up medallion cars. Here in the city this year, over 14,000 for Uber, a little bit more than 13,500 for your yellow cabs. Now, the TLC is now allowing older cars up to 2 years old. Hey, paint these bad boys yellow, join a cab fleet. So far, 5 have taken the bait. They say 7 are in the process. We'll see. Listen, the ultimate unicorn is like a bull in a china shop. The big question now is, can it be stopped? And for some, the bigger question is, should government actually intervene? All right, let's talk about this, guys, because we hear speculation around the country and in different places. Governments have actually intervened. So it brings us to our next real deal. We know there's always going to be winners coming out of the private sector. We know that Uber right now, in my mind, has become ubiquitous, and it's already destroying taxis, rent-a-cars. So what are some of the areas some of the other areas that you think are really prone targets right now, Arben, with respect to these private companies, these unicorns, these big-time tech startups? You mentioned Airbnb to the hotel industry.
Well, think about car rentals. We still have to wait around 2 hours right now to actually get a car after we land. And our flight might be just 30 minutes, and we're still waiting for 2 hours to get our car. So you're going to see, problem-solving kind of solutions that are actually finally adopting themselves. And that's really where it's not about monetizing noise anymore. It's about really solving problems.
Here's the thing, though, Matt. I mean, I don't know. I lost track of all the countries that at some point Uber was banned from. And it probably still is banned in at least a dozen countries. But should government step in at this point or just let the creative destruction process take its place?
I love the creative destruction. I think that's what makes us a better society. I think this country needs that right now to move to the next level, to continue our dominance. So I think we have to let that go. That being said, there has to be some type of regulation. Whatever regulation they have over the taxi companies, then should be put on Uber as well. You can't just let it run wild, because then obviously they're going to have all kinds of disasters. So keep it the same, but do not put any extra regulation.
I mean, Chris, it used to take 2 years to learn the streets of London. And so when you were a cab driver in London, it was a badge of honor.
Forget London, Charles. I've been in New York where the cab drivers are asking me, how do I get to where we have to go, okay?
Well, you're the man with the answers.
No, come on. That's a huge problem, right? It's a service industry. You want a better service. And I have
That doesn't mean that the Uber driver knows how to get somewhere.
They have an Apple-powered GPS device that comes with their service, so they get you there.
They do not know where they're going half the time.
I'm going to bring London back in, because the fact is, at night, the black cars aren't working. Why? But this is a few years ago. They're making so much money. They don't have to work late night shifts. So they had the small cars, the mini cars, the taxi service, and they were pretty dysfunctional. So I think Uber is solving a true problem. The consumer is better off today.
To your point, if there wasn't a problem, Uber wouldn't be around.
Exactly. Now, I agree with you.
That's a great point, because even in America, you talk about the market being a great investment. Those medallions went up every single year. It was like a cartel, and they've been pretty arrogant, to everyone's point.
But you guys have to also understand, Uber is just the first step. We're talking about driverless Ubers, and you're already talking about the driverless truck. And the truck industry is just scared right now because Mercedes and them, they're already announcing driverless trucks. So, technology is changing the paradigm of the industries. We have to accept it.
When we started the show, I'm going to go to our next real deal, Hill, because we started the show, Arben, I mentioned that your company went public last week, right?
Correct, yes.
A friend of mine told me about it. I didn't get involved. The stock went from, where's my notes? You went from $5 IPO. You traded up to 39 bucks maybe as the high. Now you're at $34. Tell us what you do and why this stock should be up this much, because you went the IPO route instead of staying in a private side.
Yeah, and it has something to do with like having the financial partners that actually take you into the public market, but also at the same time, a lot of people out there recognizing what it is. It's an enterprise Mac solution. There's no enterprise Mac solution currently in the market.
What does that mean in layman's terms? I mean, you were saying with respect to your relationship with Apple Mac computers, and how does it work?
Well, think about it. It's like right now, if I'm an enterprise, it doesn't matter if it's Wells Fargo, and I want to deploy Mac solutions within my enterprise. I have to worry about data security, access, file management, and there's currently no off-the-shelf solution like Microsoft has with the terminal services, with the thin clients, for example. And what we did, we created the thin client solution for Macintosh.
Are you guys the only one with it?
We're the only ones that actually work on a stable and are currently in Fortune 500 companies that fully adopted our solution.
And so now that you're public, do you feel like this was the right move for you?
This was the perfect move for us because it allows us now to roll up companies. It allows us to actually grow and have the headroom that we need to actually scale, because we came from Hawaii with a palm tree.
Huh. So it's so interesting because your company went public and you're to take that money and grow and invest it into new technologies and buying other companies. The problem with so many of these IPOs, Charles, is that these companies are going public. That money is just going right back
to the venture
strategy. Yeah, it's for the venture capitalists. It's literally an exit strategy. It's not to go public, which is the whole purpose, which is to invest in your future.
That's why I was interested in, and obviously there was a need for it. And we're not talking reverse takeover. A legitimate IPO with Burnham, which is a pretty well-known name, used to be part of Drexel Burnham.
Correct.
So, what you doing secondary, seeing how well it's done?
Let's see. There's a lot of things coming up. There's obviously a lot of information with prospectus, so I'm not allowed to disclose them.
I got you. I mean, it's just again, you go from $5 to 39 bucks. It's, we just did the cautionary tale with VA Linux, but this is different, though.
This is different. This is different because we validated the technology from Hawaii. You had professional CIOs.
Are you profitable yet?
You're
on the cusp.
We're on the cusp.
You're on the cusp of being a
But why would they price it at $5? That's my, why would you price it at $5 if in less than 1 week you hit $30, $39? And it seems as if there was some type of mispricing or the demand wasn't there. For an IPO in this day and age to shoot up that much, it seems something wrong to me.
Well, I mean, usually when that happens, they blame the investment banker.
Yeah, the bank.
Yeah.
I mean, Shake Shack quadrupled.
It did, didn't it?
Yeah.
Well, that did. Shopify took off too. I mean, there are a lot of stories out there. I think for businesses, they're solving problems, not story stocks.
Right. Well, I want to see this market come back where there are more 5 million raises. I think crowdfunding's not going to do it. I think all of these things that have. And why didn't you go a different route instead of IPO?
You have to understand this. Like when you look at the VC market in Silicon Valley, they're currently at idea state. You have to put in money at a $25 million valuation. That means it doesn't matter if you're Google Ventures, if you're one of these big guys. If a guy comes to you and says, "I have this idea, I'm going to solve this problem," they have to put in their money at $25 million valuations. That means the market in regards to the VC market is destroyed because your angel investors basically destroyed the VC market. So angel investors already are doing the seeding that normally the VCs used to do.
So there's a level that's missing.
Correct.
That was there. And I think that's hurting America because there's a lot of great companies, potentially great companies, that need just $5 million.
You got it.
All right, guys, keep it right there. We've got a Payne 101 coming for you. I've been getting a whole lot of emails about this questions. You guys are curious about shorting, going short, especially when we were off 230 points a day. We're going to explain it all to you. We'll be back in 3 minutes.